the information gathering, I think, is the most important part of negotiation. It's all about how you frame stuff in your own head to yourself and also how you frame stuff to other people. Anybody can learn from any story and just conceptually implement it in a business.
What one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
Wherever we learn, I think it's very important to practice it before you go to the high stakes situation.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show. I'm your host, Athin Cassiotis. And today I have an awesome guest. Her name is Paulina Wozniak. She's a dynamic sales professional with extensive experience across a diverse range of industries, including marketing, events, technology, real estate, and health and wellness over the past 10 years. And her career journey spans from grassroots street ticket sales and door-to-door engagements to expertly negotiating and closing high-stakes contracts at executive levels. And known for strategic thinking, persuasive communication, and a results-driven approach, Paulina constantly delivers value through mastering the art of negotiation and closing across complex sales landscapes. And with a proven track record of adapting to varied markets and clients' needs, she brings actionable insights and energy that shapes winning sales strategies. Welcome, Paulina. Thank you for being on the Business Growth Show.
Hello, Athin. That was a great intro. Thank you very much. I started blushing a bit.
You're very welcome. It's an amazing things that you've done there, and I like to start with some energy. So I'm sure it's going to be an amazing show for everyone watching and listening today. And you are a successful entrepreneur. So for those people who don't know who you are, introduce yourself by telling us a little bit more about you and your journey.
I mean, you pretty much said most of it. So I don't know if there's much to add. I've been in sales for a long time and I've done different types of sales. To be fair with you, I am pleased. I could say a few things that are not there. I come from a dancing background, which is completely irrelevant as much to the fact that it gave me creativity. And also, I do have an engineering degree. So it seems like I'm a trick of all trades. I've been doing sales negotiation contracts for a while now. And let's see where that leads me to. What's going to be the next steps?
Beautiful. I love that. It's almost like you got a bit more of the right brain creativity side with the dancing, and then you got the left side with the engineering side.
It's a bit weird. I think that myself, it's kind of weird. I was so not matching the people in my University of Technology. Was this weird person that was walking around in colorful dresses around a bunch of dudes with glasses and blue outfits. So, yeah.
I love it. Well, fun fact, I taught myself how to dance when I was very young in my, 14, 15 onwards, and, like to dance myself as well as having the left brain. So I think there's a lot of similarities between us, Paulina, where we can enjoy, depending on the situation. So maybe we won't talk about dancing for now. We can talk about that a bit later, but fun. But you've got, I think sales, right? Like, I think it's the most important skill in business, right? Because if you can't sell, basically you don't have a business. So, how would you talk about sales? If someone, obviously maybe they've got a few reservations about it or everything like that. How would you start with, getting people to understand the importance of sales?
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. If you can't sell, you don't exist. I mean, if you want to have a business, right? If you want to be a housewife, then that's a different story, or if your path is different. But essentially, to be fair with you, in any situation in life, you need to do some sort of a sale, right? We all want anything, even in the relationships, right? We want something, we have to communicate with another human being. It's pretty much that's what that is. So sale happens everywhere. And it's good to have some knowledge about this. And especially if you want to be in business, I mean, what else are you going to do if you can't sell? You don't have a business.
Yeah, definitely. No, I love that. It's I think your partner is probably the biggest sale of your life eventually, like that later. That the long term, indefinite one. But obviously with business, it's obviously extremely important for us to do business. And obviously you've got I guess, different types of businesses and sales, right? You've got things from
Hmm.
services, to products, obviously like the big corporate things that you've done as well, right? Which is a like
Yeah.
going to be a longer sales process. So if you were to break down a bit of a process, I guess, for people, right, of how they should be thinking about sales, how could you, tell us more about that?
Well, I would think the biggest mistake that a lot of people do when they get into the sales interaction, I would say, in any sort of situation, be it a smaller, bigger sale, corporate, small, they talk about what they think is good, right? But they won't, most of the time, they won't sell anything to anybody when they don't know stuff, right? So let's say, to give you an example, if somebody is selling, once I was closing the contract for an event implementation company. Yeah, so there was a person that was organizing an event, and a second person was trying to get a contract to organize the workflow of this event that this other person was selling, right? And I've noticed there were two completely different people, and they couldn't get to any understanding with each other because the person who was organizing an event was a complete right brainer, and that was a guy. So he wanted to, give it big spots and be no ego and like, I'm negotiating here and that's it. And this is how I want it. This is what I want. And he didn't really understand how much work can go into a workflow of organizing that for the event to look like he wants it to look like, right? The person on the other side was a woman who came from a corporate background, and she was very passionate about her workflows and this, you have to plan this to that time, do this. And they completely couldn't understand each other on the level of what they wanted. She was trying to sell what she knew was important, and he wasn't having it, even though he needed a person to do it. So I think that the biggest problem for people is that they are not looking for understanding, right? And a lot of times, if you find out what's important to the person who wants to buy it, you still gonna do what you need to do, and it can still be included in the product because you know what you're doing. But it's not always about that, right? It's about explaining the benefit of this feature. And a lot of people, I guess, talking about the features and the things that they think are important, or they may be even important. They may be the most important thing, even this other person don't know it. But when you focus on just talking against each other, you're just not going to get to any understanding. So I guess it's more about finding understanding and finding out why this person even is looking for somebody, because so start from there and maybe build on that other stuff rather than just hitting up with like, this is what matters, and you just talk in different languages.
Yeah. two
Makes
two
sense.
very yeah, definitely. Two powerful things like that I caught from that, right? Is you said left brainer or right brainer, and they were the opposite, right? So understand who the
Yes.
other person is. If they're the same, it's probably
Yeah.
easier. You could be more natural, but if they're not, then you've got to make sure you adjust, right? So that was the first
Yeah.
thing that you said. And the other one that I really liked was why is it important to them, which is, I think, is a very powerful sales question, right? And even going deeper on that, because
Yeah.
then you can link that to what your offer is, right? In the end, if
Yeah.
being smart.
100%.
Yeah.
Because look, if they didn't want it, they wouldn't be on the call. Let's start that, right? So there is a need, and we know that much now. So if you want to be the person to who feels that need, you need to know what that need is, right? So yeah, rather
Definitely.
than push your own need on this person, and even though you may be completely right about what they need, if you just basically talking at each other, you're not going to find any understanding there. So it's not going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. So, we're building a relationship there. We're understanding left brain, right brain. We're asking the right questions. Why is it important to them? Finding out more information, like you said, get that understanding. I guess we're getting to that point now. Going, okay, I now know what they want. I'm now going to pitch, right? To close them
Yeah.
in that way there. So what's important to do and not to do at this time, right? So that we, get the sale over the line.
What do you mean? Can you clarify the question?
Yeah, so then you're going to say, "Hey, I've got this great product or service," right? Like once you have the understanding of like what they actually want and need, then you're going to say, "This is how I can help you," right? In this way,
Mhm.
there in that process, and then
Yeah.
making sure they get it. Now, there could be objections, there could be other things, obviously, that pop up at that time, like towards the end, to make sure you get the sale.
Yeah.
But yeah, what can you share about that?
Well, I think that the first part is probably the most critical one. If you handle it right, you may not have any objections. Let's start there. And what's the most important? I would say connect talking about benefits of what that does rather than what you're doing. That's
Mm.
what I think it would be the most important how to pitch, right? And every pitch should be adjusted to a person that you're talking to, and you won't always know ahead of time, right? So you have to fast figure out. And I think it is easier to when somebody's a right brain person, which is the more creative one. I think it's easier for those people to adjust to the left brainer, if I'm completely honest, or maybe I'm crazy, I don't know, but it seems to me that the right brainers are more flexible in adjusting rather than when somebody's a left brainer and they're trying to sell something, I think that they would have a harder time to adjust, not to say, to adjust to the language and how to speak to this person who's just so much, right? So if there is a left brain in a closer and a person on the other side is a right brainer, that would be a harder adjustment for the salesperson than opposite. However, it's just mainly connecting benefit to the feature rather than, let's say, just to give you an example. For example, if we want to talk about this example that I already gave, what can I remember about this? Okay, so let's say a phone, right? You have a phone. You can say this is iPhone. It can take nice pictures. It's got a nice big screen and it costs X amount of money, right? What you can say is, look, so this iPhone has a very big screen. Oh, by the way, this is a pretty picture of me. I really like it. So so it has a very big screen. So therefore, it would be easier for you to edit pictures on it once you do them because you have a big vision, right? There's free cameras, which means that you can adjust certain lenses depending on how close you want to take a picture. So you can take very good selfies and obviously use them for your social media right there on the spot, right? And this is kind of like what I'm talking about. Rather than saying iPhone, that's the size, I have a camera here, that's what happens. You can use it for yeah, it holds X amount of memory. This is a feature. If you tell them what that feature can do for them, and you can find out which features are more important to this person, therefore you just put more energy. And even in the back of your head, you may know they actually need this one more, and I know it. But if they don't understand it, if you focus on it, you simply won't find an understanding between each other. So you will deliver it anyway, right? It's in there. So you know you're going to do the good job, but still to sell it, you have to cater to this person's needs. It's really the whole, right?
Yeah, definitely. No, it's so true. I love that the benefit side, right, is not just what it is, but what is it going to do for them, and that's definitely the way, so they can see that in their mind. And I know like part of sales not exactly the same as negotiating, obviously, and you do a lot of negotiating as well. So obviously you might want something, but the other party might want something else, and you have to sort of find a middle ground or something like that, depending on, especially if it's a bigger type of deal that you're working on. So what can you share with us, to make a negotiation be as, smooth as possible and also get sort of a good outcome in the negotiation?
Mm. Yeah. I think that also comes down to very similar principles, which means finding out, look, if there is any situation of, let's say, somebody's selling a house and there's a seller and a buyer, right? They both want something. If they didn't want something, they wouldn't be in the position that they are, right? So I guess the biggest part about negotiating is through various sources is finding out what is the reason for this person and how, what is your expectation, what you're looking for. This may not always be the case. It may not always align. Let's say in terms of property sale, right? Uh, Say I'm a property investor, and the person who wants to sell the house, let's say, has 5 houses, and they just want to sell one because they want to sell one, but they are not desperate to sell it. So they want, I'm not going to be their buyer, right? So it may not always align as well. I think the most important part is to put some time and energy into research, right? In whichever way you can find out what is the reason, right? And obviously you do have to do it in a skilled way. You can't just go around asking people, straightforward, because they will know that you're trying to obviously find out. But I mean, like, this is life. This is how it works. There's nothing wrong with it. We all want something from one another in this situation. So I guess it's who's better at getting to the gist of it, right? So the information gathering, I think, is the most important part of negotiation. And then don't give it all away up front. Leave yourself like points to give out in different places, because you're never going to get straight to the bottom of it in the first hello. There's always some give and take, give and take, give and take, right? So don't give it up all up front. And that's what I think is the most important part.
Yeah, cool. No, I love that. So powerful. And I know you deal with a lot of the bigger types of deals, right, in the executive level. And like I've worked with big brands as well, and there can be a lot of stakeholders and stuff involved, right? So it's a more complex type of sales and negotiation sort of process. So, what should we, if people are out there trying to close those types of deals, what are some things that we should be thinking about when you've got, more people involved?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the best way, which is not always possible, but it's just you need to be talking to the decision maker, right? And a lot of times that's the challenge in these sort of situations, to to lead the conversation in a way that you are in front of decision maker. Because a lot of people will tell you, "Oh, I'm the decision maker," right? When they're really not, because they just operate in a certain way. So I think this is the most important part of that. Simply, and there's many reasons for that. The reason is this, the most important one. Let's say that you speak to somebody, they understand what they understand, and then they communicate it in their own way to the other person. This may be completely lost in translation. It's not even, the deal is lost because of the lack of communication skills, which is the biggest problem for most people. Let's be honest, right? Or for lack of understanding, right? So the way that I would approach that is to try to position the conversation before you even pitch, to find out who's the real decision maker and who's the most important person in that, and position it in a way that this person who you're talking to benefits from being a connector and getting the call together, this sort of thing. So yeah, the biggest issue with that is, I think, is there's a lot of information that can be lost in translation just because 5 people pass it on to one another, right? So how to manage that? Obviously, it's not always the case. So you can also work with this person into teaching them how to say it without appearing like how you teach them, how that you're actually teaching them, so they don't feel offended. But yeah, that's, I think, the biggest thing, to try to get to a decision maker. There's ways to do it, and obviously you have to position this information correctly to the person that you are talking to, so they want to do that, want to accommodate that, rather than feel like, oh, they're going to cut me out, or maybe they don't feel respected, right? So you have to obviously be very mindful and skillful how to go around it. However, that's, I would say, the biggest thing. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, like I
from
would.
your
I
experience?
think that yeah, one question that like on the, where you were talking about the decision maker is like who else is involved in making this decision or getting this deal over the line, right? However you word it. Because then that's a simple way of you know what I mean? Because especially when you're at a bigger company, it's more likely, right? If it's not the owner of the company, then you know, it's a soft way of doing that. Whether and then you can sort of go, okay, well, how can I bring them in later? I think that's very powerful. And yeah, I think once they're understanding that situation because it's all about ego, right? You know, especially with men, but generally people have got ego, right?
Well, with some women too, right? It's look, a lot of women, to be fair, that are, it's not the case always, but a lot of women who are in the position of high level business, they only got there because they have a certain type of personality, right? And that's not always right. So it depends. It could be either or, really, to be fair.
Yeah. And you know, you've got to, like you said, you've got to basically stroke the ego, right? Like you got to make it seem like they're part of it, you know, and everything like that. So it could be something like, hey, you know, let's make an introduction to your boss or whatever like that. I'm going to make sure it's all your idea, all these types of things, you know, so they're looked after. The
I
ego is
see, but this
stroked.
is even too straightforward, I'd say.
Yeah.
Like, I see, you this is too straightforward. They already, it appears, you know. I would say I would just be first things first. You want to do an asking question part. So whatever, let's say you're on the call, obviously depends who is talking with whom, right? You can't ask questions just anybody, because then if this person is too big for it, you'll be like, fuck this, you know. I'm not answering this boy's questions. But let's say that you're speaking to an assistant or some like a head of marketing of a big company, right? So this person technically is a head of marketing, but they still can't make a decision, right? So I would be asking them first about what just as much as you can find out about the project that they're doing, and maybe asking them about previous situations that they tried to solve this problem before, and how did it go and why did it go bad, so to lead them through asking questions to them realizing that this method hasn't worked before, right? And there's still a problem there. So they realize it on their own, rather than you telling who else is involved. It's, you know, it's already, you're already playing on the ego part, right? So asking them questions about, let's say, who else is in, so then why didn't it work, or this, that, they obviously try to solve this problem. And then from there you can say, okay, so then randomly it comes to be a natural question, who else is involved, right? And based off of that, so what is the connection, how does that, you know, this sort of thing. And then saying something like, so wouldn't it make, based on your experience, wouldn't it make more sense that all the people that may have some questions about that would be on this call with us, right? Because then obviously you found out that this happened, this was the problem, that's why it didn't work. Usually it would happen even when you're talking to a spouse, right? You're selling to somebody and there is a wife and a husband over there. Husband may actually have different questions than she does. So if she says, let's say, I need to talk to my husband, then obviously you ask her a few questions about this or that and maybe try to close her with it out, because sometimes it's just a natural thing to say, right? And it could be perfectly fine just on it. But if, let's say, this is really a situation that she does ask her husband, then you can say, yeah, but what if your husband has some different questions, right? Because he's a different person, like all of those stuff. So it makes them want to involve this person all on their own. You can't, you know, does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. It's I like it. It's I link it to like mentoring and coaching, right? Like from telling someone something or from asking the right question for them to figure it out themselves, basically, right? Yeah.
This is exactly the point that I made in the beginning when you asked me why sales is important. Because it's just a communication skill. It really is. And to be fair with you, it's easier said than done when you're in the situation, when you have some emotions about the situation. We all fail with that, right? We're all maybe experts, but when they're, so it's not always that easy. But technically, sale is purely about right communication, right? That's really what it is.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect way to even train it. Let's say, to answer to the business owners that you asked me before, or what would you say to them? I would say you don't have to treat it as a sale. You can treat it if you're stressed about this. Let's say somebody's starting out and they're stressed about this, or they just don't like it. They can just reposition it in the brain as a communication practice for my marriage, right? Because whenever you do something one way, it spills in other things of your life. It just becomes you. So if somebody doesn't like it, you can treat it as a communication practice and see how it goes, and it becomes fun. So it's all about how you frame stuff in your own head to yourself, and also how you frame stuff to other people.
Yeah, I love that. The mindset stuff, so important, right? And yeah, just put a new meaning on it. Something that's there because you could have some things that you don't like about sales, just communication, like Paulina said, and then and then you have fun with it. Like try something,
Exactly.
evaluate, see what you did, see when a sale happened, when it didn't happen, right? And what happened there.
Yeah. And when you record those stuff, let's say if you do it on the Zoom, then you can re-listen. And the interesting part is, oh my God, yeah, just hearing yourself, I don't like that much, but hey, it is what it is.
I love it. Yes, it's good, right? And that's the power of Zoom. And I think it's also, obviously, if you can meet them in person, it's ideal, but we do business all over the world, right? So a lot of it can be on Zoom. I think it's good also for the recording, as well as even like the physical body language side, right? Even that's there. So you
Yeah.
can sort of have the connection with them too. Yeah.
And to be fair with you, you can learn a lot about yourself. We don't see ourselves in the situations, and a lot of times we think we act one way, but when you listen to your own self later, you realize, I wasn't as clear as I thought I was, or I didn't say it the way that I thought I did, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and this is the thing, I think that's probably one of the biggest skills generally, right? That you're talking about here with business is reflection, right? It's like you're never going to get better if you just keep trying. Yes, you will eventually, probably, but you still have to look back and go,
Mm.
this is the little tweak that I can do, right? To make it a little bit better and then a little bit better. And if you keep doing that, you're going to be much quicker, much better, from in sales or whatever it is that you're focusing on. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Love it.
What else you've got for me, Aiden? Hit
What
me.
else have I got? Well, I know if we move on, right? I know a lot of things that you like to talk about as well is about collapsing time, right, in life and business. So,
Oh, I
um,
do like that. Yeah.
so tell us this because I think time's the most important asset, right? And if we can collapse time,
Yeah.
even better, right? Get things better,
Yeah.
faster, and everything to get to where we want to be.
I'm
So tell
very
us about this.
passionate about ideas. But that's also yeah, I think everything you can learn from everything and everybody if you know how to look, right? So just to give you an example, what I've heard recently, and I found that was really cool. I think that a lot of people think of life in a linear way, and that's a lot of times that's why they don't get into what they want to do actually, because they think, oh, it's going to be too long, I can't do it. It seems, I don't know, it just seems like it's not going to happen because they think about stuff in the linear way and they never approach it. So I'm very passionate about stories where people did something that just made it blow up. And I heard a very cool one recently, and I think it's a great strategy lesson that anybody can apply in their business, even though it's a music rock band. So there is this rock band called Youngblood. He's from England. The guys are from England, from a very small city that I've been to once, and it made me quit something. So it's a very depressing place. And I'm not a quitter. But I was like, after going there, I was like, oh, sweet Jesus, no, I'm out. So they have the rock band, and they were trying. Nobody wanted to listen to them. This, that, or the other, like typically happens when you're starting a new band, right? Nobody knows you, nobody cares. And they are started getting big in Amsterdam, in Netherlands. So they went there to do a few shows. And while they were in Netherlands, somebody from Los Angeles called them and invited them to come and do a show in Los Angeles. So this young blood kid took a friend with him, an Irish friend, and while they had a recording session in a studio in Los Angeles, this they had 12-hour passes to enter the studio. So he gave one of the passes to his friend, and he was supposed to be presumably a drum player, but he was not. He was just there to ride an elevator up and down all day for 12 hours. And that's what he did. And while he was riding elevator up and down for 12 hours, he was telling everybody how, have you heard about this kid, Young Blood? He was hyping them out. And a lot of these people who were riding this elevator were young, low-level executives at record labels, because that's their job, to go and pick something up, do something. So all these people started to stress out and talk to each other. And by the time the young blood had a show in LA, he had every single head of big record label at the show, just because of that. And I thought that was so interesting, because it was such a random idea, and how many times we think of ideas like this, but we never do them. And this is the whole game changer. This is what makes life fun, right? So in the name of, that's what I would call collapsing time, to have a little strategic idea that changes everything, but how many of us implement them? And a lot of times they wouldn't work, but if you don't try them, you never do them. Just like, what was it? Savannah Bananas, right? They operate on ideas, and how many times they implemented ideas that they were just completely didn't work. But you have to still try, otherwise that's what I understand as collapsing times, implementing a strategic idea that makes something switch in a second. And I love that. I'm very passionate about those stories, and I think that anybody can learn from any story and just conceptually implement it in a business. This was obviously a story from music. However, I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I love that. And it actually links to what you're saying about communication, right? Because in the end, we're doing business with people, and it's actually quite smart, because it's like, well, how do we need to be successful? We need a record label. Where are the record label people? Oh, they're going to be up and down this lift. I'm going to put a person and just be there.
But
And
but
yeah,
who thinks about that? I thought
right.
I was like, this was so genius. Who thinks about it? And he's like, I took a
Yeah.
friend of mine, he's this Irish dude. Like, you call a mate from Ireland to go with you to LA to ride an elevator for 12 hours, and he did it. This is just the best thing ever.
I love it. Well, it's
Because
it's
obviously on
gone.
the back end of it, you see the result, right? But before you do it, when you put yourself in this position, it's almost like it seems crazy.
Yeah. And that's business, right? Like trying so
Yeah.
many different things and them not working, and keep getting back up, keep going, keep doing them, and eventually one hits and then it's massive, right? And
Yeah.
everyone thinks, "Oh, you're an overnight success," or that just happened. It's like you didn't see all the other times that I tried.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. No, it's so powerful. I love that. Right, think about those strategic things. Don't just think about the specific thing you're doing now. What's the end goal? Think more into the future, and what are different ways that I can do it and implement them as quickly as possible. Right, I think that's so valuable. And this is why having people around you, like Paulina, myself, other people that can help you think strategically as well. Because sometimes you need an external person if you're stuck in it as well, right? To come in and go, these are
Mhm.
different ways of doing things in that way. So I think it's important to think outside the box. So I love it. And yeah,
I
you want to
think
add
it's
something else?
important to, yeah, I think it's important to practice it really. I think that's really the trick. A lot of us, including I'm also guilty of that, we're looking for the help outside, and it's good to have it outside, and it's good to have people that you can be inspired by, but it's still really nobody can tell you what are the right things for you. There's like, I can guarantee you that some stuff that worked for you, if you told them to somebody before you do them, even if this person may be a good person to ask, right? It's still, it's just, the life is funny like that. Like, you really have to find your own way for all of it, and it's good to have people around you to get inspired by, but you still have to listen to your own discernment. That's the only way. there's just there's
Yeah.
just no other way. If you always rely on other people's opinions, it's never going to be yours, even if you win. So then you became a success, but you're not yourself. Do you enjoy it? That's a very tricky part of knowing which advice to take. And also sometimes, even if the advice is great, you may not be able to do it in a way that is effective because it wasn't yours. So sometimes somebody can give you the best idea in the universe. And I'm sure you experience a lot of that being a business coach. Sometimes your idea can be amazing, but if the person doesn't have a connection with that idea, they won't do it right anyway, right?
Yeah. And this is the fun part. Well, I love the strategic stuff and giving the ideas, but you're right. They've got to be able to see it. And this is using your own intuition, your instincts, right? Your gut feeling about, is it right for you? And then how to mold that. And I'm very like, I make sure that I understand enough about the business so that, and ask the right questions so that it will be implemented in the way that they like, right? I don't just say, do it this way. It's like, you got to add layers, like you said, Paulina, because otherwise, yeah, it's not going to happen in that way. So yeah, I love it.
So we're getting to the bottom of it. You have to sell the idea, right? To communicate in the way that this person can understand. So sale isn't always a straightforward exchange product for money. My point exactly from the beginning, it's a communication skill. So for you, this idea to work properly, you have to be the one who sells it right. Even if you're right, if you just spit it out and throw it at somebody, and this person truly doesn't get it, it's not going to change shit. So
Exactly. So I love it. All communication, guys. If that's the number one thing, but it's taking from that. But I do like to ask you as we're wrapping up here today, Paulina, because you had a lot of value. Is what one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
okay, since we're on the communication, I think it's important to practice. Sometimes we forget to practice and we go straight to the meeting that matters, right? Let's say that you want to practice sales. Pick one skill, pick one way of negotiating. I don't know. Let's say bargaining. You want to practice bargaining. Go to the market and bargain with people about stuff that you don't care about, right? So let's say that you read a book about some whatever we learn. I think it's very important to practice it before you go to the high stakes situation. You're just not ready. And the practice in this game would be to go and talk to people, right? What are you selling? I don't know. Let's say practice for a basketball player would be go and practice. Like Kobe Bryant did what? Blackouts. He called those practices. You practice until you black out, right? So you're ready for the game, and you still have to do drills with other people, right? And practices. So I think that the part that we forget in life, anything you want to improve, even if you want to improve communicating with spouse, right? And you hear about some way of, I don't know, this is very effective. Go to the coffee shop and practice that with random people before you go and talk to your wife.
Yeah, so true. I love it, Paulina. It's so interesting. Do the practice, and so you become more competent and more confident, right? So that it becomes more natural. I think that's the most thing. So you don't have to think about it as much because you've done enough reps, right, in the gym that you built the muscle.
100%.
Yeah, I love that. So true. Such a great point. And yeah, we connected, through our networks. I learned about your awesome journey and various sales roles across, diverse range of industries and, marketing, events, technology, real estate, and health. And amazing woman, so knowledgeable, so powerful. And you break it down very simply, right? On just the connection piece, right? About understanding about people. And that's what business is, what life is. And you do that well. And you can do anything really. And I'm sure you continue to deliver this value, right, through mastering the art of negotiation and closing sales across, complex sales landscape. So very grateful that we connected and look forward to partnering with you as well. So Paulina, how can people find you, get in contact with you?
I think the best way currently is on Instagram. I do own the fact that I have to improve my social media game. But Instagram is the best place, and it's my name, Paulina _ Frusha, which is my, let's say, second name, FRUSHA _ Wozniak. That's the best way.
Beautiful. Well, definitely check out Paulina there on her Instagram. Follow her, send her a message, and connect with her because she's very connected. She travels the
Yeah, please do.
world and everything like that, and knows a lot of people and definitely can help you right in these ways, breaking it down simply
Absolutely.
and doing all of that. And yeah, it's been a pleasure interviewing you, Paulina. Thanks for being on the Business Growth Show.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Business Growth Show, where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. And if you want to grow and scale your business, you can reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. So until next time, remember that our business grows where we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So let's create wealth and freedom together.